talking to this? I mean, it's for the internet, so the internet can hear you. Yeah, I apologize if
That's
it's.
okay. I don't like the sound of my voice.
It's all right. I don't like my
Can
voice
I just
either.
set it here? Is there a way to?
If I had a stand, I could, but I forgot my stand to be honest.
Okay. Can it? Will it not hear me if it's
It won't hear
like?
you as well. Like it'll hear you really well if you just hold it to your mouth.
I'll get nervous though. Yes, please. I was waiting till the equipment setup was done.
You could mic up the. You could set up the PA system and talk to the PA system. I could mic up a speaker. If you want to do that instead.
Okay.
I mean, it's up
Wait,
to you. It's
mic up. Can I just have it here and I'll?
keep on talking. Let me see how the pickup is.
Okay, I'll keep talking to you about this because I really don't think I want to hold a microphone.
All right. Some books.
Yeah, I could stack it up a little bit.
It should be good. I turned up the volume, so
Okay.
it should be able to pick up
Like
your
the
voice.
anatomy of the inside of my head doesn't work well for loud.
All right.
How's that?
That's good. That should
Okay.
be good.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it should be good.
So this is getting live streamed and then.
The live stream I can edit it later. I can delete it too if you want me to delete it later. It's up to you.
I don't think so, but I know a friend of mine out in Tacoma, Washington wants me to send her a link when, like, doesn't, like, she's at work, so she can't watch it now, but later on if it's recorded.
Okay. So we do.
Oh, good. There's a couple of people we'd like to have you thanks. What's she saying? Probably good. That used to be American Express advertisement.
Yeah, I kind of knew this wouldn't be quite as packed with it being a Wednesday.
No, you won't know.
This is the pre-recording. This is the playback. It's still live.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to.
Oh, that's me.
I just want to make sure that the volume is good.
Yeah.
Everyone has tattoos. So
Obviously, we are pirates.
there's a big pirate convention
ready to roll?
We need to send somebody.
I don't do cons. I'm ready.
You ready? All right, so I know everybody here, I'm not gonna give you the spiel on how this group started, but, this is our 5th session. Yes, I know you didn't wanna hear me ramble on. So this is our 5th session that we've done this year, so I'm pretty proud of that. We have a few more ideas in our pipeline, but we're open to suggestions from everyone. I know at the, event last Thursday, we passed around sticky notes real quick and asked people to fill them out.
There were some good ideas.
There were some good ideas. So I have a clipboard here with blank spaces for you to write more ideas, so we can come up with either find speakers or, you know.
Think about
Internally-
things you see mentioned in the news that you don't understand but feel like you should, and you'd like someone to explain it to you.
Right. So, anyway, so without further ado, I'm gonna turn this over to Amy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, everybody. We're going to level set right at the beginning. I am going to give you a couple of tricks for assessing information, but you need to understand that being really information literate takes some time. It just takes some time and effort, and that's just how it is. But we can make it take a little less time and effort. So what we're going to cover, what is information? Sources of information. So where are good places to find it? The importance of information. Search strategies, and then at the end we'll have our tricks. So you don't get the candy until you get through the hard part. And one of the reasons this is hard is because it is like this meme. Getting information off the internet is like taking a drink from a fire hydrant. I know a lot of people feel that way. So what is information? Great question. We don't know. We know and we don't know because it's everything. It's all different kinds of things. Anything that makes you think, or that you think about, or that you want to tell someone, or that someone tells you, or a thing that you see, or a question you have, that's all information. A recipe, the context on a news story, data tables, illustrations, directions to someplace, source documents, summaries, anything and everything. It's all information. That's kind of why it's hard, because it's anything that goes into your eyes or your ears that makes you know something. So what makes information good? How do you know when you read something, what kind of framework do you use to look at it and decide, is this real or is it not real? Is this truth or a lie? And I really like to think of it in terms of how things are presented in a court of law, right? So they have evidence. There's some kind of documentation. There's a recording. There's, proof of some kind. There's witnesses. And then you get corroboration on all of that. They almost never just take someone at their word. Like, there has to be some sort of corroboration. Willingness to be cross-examined on your assertions. If I sue Janet because she did something, I have to be willing to show up in court and sit in that box and swear to tell the truth, and her lawyer gets to ask me, are you really telling the truth or did you make this up? So any piece of article or, essay or summary or something that you're reading, if that person presents themselves as open to being questioned about how they know what they know or how they came to the conclusions that they came to, that's usually kind of a tip-off that it's most likely true. And then the potential for negative consequences if found to be lying. So if you're just on some random website and someone just says a thing, there's really no way to hold that person accountable. But if you read something in something like the Wall Street Journal, if maybe people were reading the Wall Street Journal today for some unrelated reason, they have real legal repercussions if they're found to be making stuff up or lying. So that's kind of how, it's just logic. How far out on the ledge are they going to put themselves to get clicks? So keep that in mind. And this is just a starting point. You also, all of us here have been on the planet for a few decades at least, and we kind of know what's normal. We've got a framework already. We've got some baseline knowledge that we should be incorporating when we learn something new. Don't forget everything you already knew. Any questions? So how to find bad information? Start looking in the wrong place. So if you know the topic of some answer to some question that you're looking for, and you start, if you're trying to find out something about a vaccine and you start on IMDb, you're in the wrong place, right? So that's not the way to get good information. Don't accept the first answer that you find. If you want to know that a headline that you saw, find out if it's true or not, you need to go search for more information about that to double check. You're making a mistake if you're not considering what the author or creator's motivation is or what their authority is. So there's a lady on TikTok who has a doctorate in pregnancy nutrition, and she talks about health and medical misinformation. And she's willing to show her credentials, and she's got all the research and the study to back it up. And then there's some muscled out guy standing shirtless in the aisle of a Trader Joe's who, if you look into his background, he's got a certificate that took 6 weeks to get in dietetics. Not a dietitian, but just, some kind of nutritionist. So those are differences in people's authority, which then means there's a big difference in the credibility of those two people. And you guys probably know that, but I don't know if you really solidified it. You had a feeling maybe this person is a better source than this other person, but that's why. And then not considering how the information fits into what you already know. If you see a big news story about how a beach house in the middle of the desert in Nevada was just set on fire, that's probably not true because you have an idea of what Nevada looks like and you know what a desert is, right? So. Information quality, and I know this is the part you guys really came to see. Misinformation versus disinformation. Does anybody already know the definitions of those two words, academically, how they're defined?
I always have to reference back to look to make sure.
Miss is like a mistake.
Oh, thank you. That's
Right?
connect that all together.
It's on accident. It's not, misinformation is, well, like the example I have here. I heard you're not feeling well. I heard that vitamin C will help your cold go away faster. You're just trying to be helpful. You heard something. You don't know if it's true or not, but you're passing it along. Disinformation is if I tell you, I know for a fact that vitamin C will cure your cold, and you can buy some from me for $29.99. I'm telling you the wrong information on purpose to get you to do something. That's what disinformation is. And so this is kind of the more academic, the definitions and stuff, but I think this stuff is important to keep in mind. Not that there's going to be a quiz on at the end. There might be. Keep in mind that a lot of things that you're trying to assess for accuracy or validity, if it turns out it's misinformation, it probably crosses a lot of these boundaries. It can be a combination of different things. But generally speaking, false connection is when the headlines or visuals or captions don't support the content. And I'm sure you guys have seen an example of that. False context. So maybe the thing is true, but it's being presented to you in the context of something that's not true. Manipulated content, when genuine information or imagery is manipulated to deceive. And I'm going to have examples in the next slide. I just want this part to be really clear. So satire or parody. Now, it usually surprises people that this is in the categories of misinformation. And does anybody want to hazard a guess as to why? Right. Have you ever seen somebody share an article from The Onion and didn't realize that it was not true because of that? So misleading content. It's the use of misleading information to frame an issue or an individual. Imposter content, when genuine sources are impersonated. Has anybody heard about, there was a story recently about how someone got a recording of the Secretary of State's voice and started calling people using that voice? OPSEC, it's a thing. Fabricated content, new content that is 100% false, designed to deceive or to harm. So here's some examples. The top one, does anybody remember when this happened? Yeah. What kind of mis or disinformation would you call that? We'll go back. Which one of these 7 categories do you think this fits into? Manipulated, right? And it's also misleading. Yeah. So what about this one up here, this headline? Drinking tequila could help you lose weight. Maybe. But, and do you guys understand how they do this with some of these things? We're like, a glass of wine every day, and how they sort of mess with the numbers and extrapolate data where it may not go. I think this chart down here is actually really, really helpful to show how numbers and data can be used to mislead people. So the one on the left is down to the, I don't know, 1/10 of a percentage point. Is that what, I'm not good at numbers. The one on the right makes it look like they're all basically the same and there was no increase when there actually was. So people do stuff like this all the time, which means you have to, when you see a chart and it makes you go, oh my God, take a minute to actually look at the numbers. Find out what the sample size was. Like, take a second to maybe do the math and find out how much of a change was there actually, or are they trying to mislead me by telling me that it was a 2% increase. Maybe 2% is only 3 people. And then the one down here, I see this all the time on Facebook, where it's got a headline like somebody died, and they're just trying to get you to click on it. And I think most of us now, not everybody, but a lot of people now know that's almost never true. Does anybody have any questions? Types of information. I feel really clever with this slide. I really hope you guys enjoy it. So there's 4 basic types of information. Factual. A factual statement would be, the Corn Palace has been rebuilt 3 times since 1892. Fact. Analytical. We had the factual statement. We know based on that there was a first Corn Palace and also a second Corn Palace. So there must have been some reason that they had to rebuild it more than once. So analytical information is where you take a fact and you draw it out and come to another conclusion and add some information by putting it into context and analyzing it. Subjective. Building a palace out of corn is weird. That's my opinion. Though I've been to the Corn Palace and it's actually very beautiful. But it is a very weird thing to do. So subjective means, that's my opinion, right? Objective, I think if we asked everyone, if we did a poll, and I told you that they built the Corn Palace to highlight the agricultural success in the state of South Dakota, you would go, oh, that makes sense. That's actually, a clever way to do that, right? So that's objective. When we all kind of together, we come up with a position on something. But objective is supposed to mean like it's not just up to one person. Janet, you've been to the Corn Palace. Anybody else? You really should go. They replace all the corn every year. It's actual corn, and they make these murals out of corn kernels from a wide variety of species.
And
Different murals every year. Yeah.
spacing.
And they play basketball.
Yeah. And they have a big gift shop with lots of fun stuff that I saw when I was a kid. Okay, so now we're getting to information sources. Now we're going to break these into broadly 2 categories, but they're not the only categories that exist. But scholarly and popular. So scholarly always has citations. Scholarly sources do not ever tell you, I saw the sun come up yesterday, without giving you a citation. And popular, there's a lot of things that fit under the category of popular. Some of them have citations and some don't. So New York Times opinion editorials, they often have, if you read them online, they often have highlighted words where they're linking to where they got that information from. So they're showing you, they're drawing you the map of their thought process and how they got to where they did, which is a good thing. If they don't have those things, I don't find them to be nearly as credible. But newspapers are considered popular information sources, and like we said earlier, so the Wall Street Journal, we know, has a big reputation that they want to protect, that they want to hold very closely. So they're going to take fewer chances. Other places, maybe they're not going to be quite that. No, I don't necessarily want to call it conscientious because, they have to make money. But some places are just not going to do all the work that's required to make it. Yeah, the New York Post is not great. But for some other scholarly citations, so books, nonfiction, long-form, in-depth explanations of topics. if you really want to know something, your best bet is to go get a book and read the book. And I'm not saying memorize every word, but I'm saying if you want to understand the Mexican-American War, someone will be able to tell you about a really great book that's just about that time period. And you'll know that because that book went through a publishing process, somebody was fact-checking it and making sure all of those assertions and declarations could be backed up in some way. Now, there are some publishers that are not as conscientious. They do exist. Like Bill O'Reilly has a lot of books. I don't think he's being totally honest in all of them. But those are not the same publishers that are publishing history books by Heather Cox Richardson or other, notable academics in the field that you want to know more about. So for my money, going to a book is always good. Also, book reviews. If you don't have time to read the whole book, lots of times authors will do interviews on podcasts, on television shows, or they have book reviews from publishers where they'll give you some of the information that's in that. And I kind of like listening to those interviews anyways, because it gives me a lot of insight into how the author, came to the decision to write the book, what about it was most important to them as I'm reading it. It's always good information to have. So journals, you guys know about journals, medical journals, legal journals, scientific journals. Like that's the place to go for, right now, what do we know right now about IV infusions? Go to a medical journal. This was a new one for me until a couple of years ago, gray literature. I find it very interesting. It's a whole genre of literature that doesn't go through a publishing process, but is considered to be very reliable and trustworthy. And it's things like white papers, government reports, maybe a little less reliable now than it was a few years ago. But a lot of that stuff is still up. So we'll get to a few examples in a second. So magazines, you know that People magazine is different from the Wall Street Journal, but they're both in the popular section. I'm not saying People magazine's lying all the time. But as we said earlier, you need to go to the right place for the information you're looking for. Then video databases, YouTube, but nobody's checking that. So you can get really good information on YouTube, but nobody's checking it to make sure all of it's true. So what do you think is the best way to try to make sure that what you're seeing is true? Who's the creator? What authority do they have to talk about that subject? So try to stick with people who you know have some credibility and some authority in that subject. And then websites. There's a million websites. You got to be careful with that. And I think in the popular section, a lot of this comes more to the sort of relationship of trust that you have with that author, that creator, that researcher, whoever that person is, looking, Googling them, seeing what their work history is, have they ever been called out? And we'll talk about how to do that. But that's important, is figure out who your trusted purveyors of information are and really stick with those people unless they prove to you that they shouldn't have been trusted. All right, the elephant in the room. I know a couple of people have asked about AI. AI is a tool, and it can be a good tool. It can be very useful for some things, but it's not the destination. It can help you get to your destination, but it's not the end-all, be-all. And there's different kinds of AI. So when someone says, I'll just use AI to do that, they're using ChatGPT like it's Google, and that's really not a great idea. But if you're using something like Copilot to help you reword your email so that perhaps you sound a little less hostile to one of your coworkers you're annoyed with, I think that's a good use of an AI tool. We also, at the library that I work at, our new catalog system actually has an AI-supported research assistant that you can type in a question. It stays within the boundaries of scholarly articles, journals, books that are in academic libraries in the state of Ohio. You ask it a question, it gives you the top 5 sources to answer that question with 1 or 2 paragraphs giving you a synopsis of an answer to your question, with each fact linked to the source that it got it from. And then from that, it offers you options for, if I want to know what are the effects on the human body of vitamin K deficiency. So it gives me these 5 sources. Then they'll say, do you want to know what the effects are on adolescents? Do you want to know what sources of vitamin K are? And so it can kind of help you along on your research journey, because a lot of times when you're starting out with something, you don't know what you don't know. And so I think it's actually really, really useful. You guys should come see me at Terra and I'll show you how to use it. So AI isn't one thing. ChatGPT isn't one box sitting in a warehouse somewhere. It's actually a family of programs. It's the training data, so it's all the stuff that's put into it, the algorithms, the models, which there are different types. There are learning models, and there are things called agents that affect how the questions are answered or how it does what it does, and then natural language processing. So this is the part that in the past, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this. In the past 18 months, AI suddenly sounds more human, right? If any of you guys have tried it out. How many of you guys have tried out AI? Like just to, okay. It's starting to sound like a person, which is a bit creepy, but it does mean that it also understands what you're asking better, which I guess is good. So the basic gist, and I'm not a computer scientist, but I've been researching this for probably about 6 months to try to explain it to college students so that they understand. Because I feel like if you want to use a tool, you should know what the capabilities of that tool are. That way you know if it's the appropriate tool to use for the job you need to get done, right? You can't use a plastic screwdriver to screw a metal thing into metal. You need a metal screwdriver. So there are some limitations in AI. Data is fed into the system, and then they break it into a bunch of tiny pieces. And in my mind, I think of it as a swimming pool filled with like little domino chips. That's just sort of how it helps me visualize it. So it's just full of all these, they put in books, and it breaks all that down into these little domino pieces and throws it in the pile. And then you've got algorithms that teach the computer how to recognize patterns. So somebody writes the code to create an algorithm that tells it how to find what piece, how to find which pieces, because every one of those pieces is indexed as it goes in. So the algorithm is taught how to read those indexes and put those things together. So it may be, go find all the blue ones. That could be an algorithm. Go find all the blue ones. Go find every mention of Daffy Duck. The instructions. A model is used to tell the computer how to craft the answer to your question. So do you want an image? Do you want an essay? Do you want a policy? Do you want an answer to a question? The model is part of what tells the computer how to do that. And then the answer is given, and I know scholarly, like the AI research assistant that we have at the library, it really wants you to give it like a thumbs up, thumbs down. It really wants some kind of feedback so that it knows it found the information you were looking for in the way that you wanted it to be. So here's an example of one kind of AI that you're probably used to seeing. So Netflix has an index of all of the movies and TV shows that are in its library. Every one of those movies and TV shows is further indexed to identify all of these different pieces of information. The actors, the genre, the directors, the themes, the tones, etc. And then it tracks how many times you've watched a certain show. If you give it a thumbs up, yes, I liked this. If you give it a thumbs up and say, no, I did not like this, and then it finds other users who like the same things, and maybe they like things that you didn't come across. And so it pulls all of that together, and it offers you recommendations based on that. So it's a pretty basic predictive type of function. It just takes what you've done in the past and says, maybe you would like this. That's really all it does. I don't think it does a great job, but that's just me. So the kind of AI that we're usually talking about is called general AI, and that's like ChatGPT. ChatGPT, write me an essay that sounds like a junior in college about the, factors leading up to the French Revolution. And it's free during the school year for students. So that's a whole separate thing. So for general AI, the system ingests huge amounts of data. Sometimes they purchased it and sometimes it's pirated. And one of the things you should know is that the big race right now is not the computer programs, it's the data. Everybody wants to have the most data to work with because that's like their basic business model is you need all of the information in order to rearrange it and pull it together into something for somebody. And then it puts those pieces of data together based on instructions. It can only do what it's told to do. AI systems are not people, they don't think. It has to be told, find all of the red pieces and give me all of the red pieces, and it will do that. But this is also why there are a lot of mistakes that are made. I don't know if you guys ever heard about this, but there was a place where they noticed that in the criminal justice system, they noticed that sentencing recommendations were much higher for black offenders than they were for white offenders. So they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get this AI system to give us sentencing recommendations because it's a computer and it doesn't have any bias. But guess what? It can only make decisions based on the information you put in. So if you feed it 30 years worth of data where black people got higher sentencing recommendations than white people, it perpetuates that and most likely intensifies it, because that's how that works. It can't correct for human error in that way because everything that it has in its repository is human. And then it delivers the answer in the way that the model tells it to. But there's some more problems. So garbage in, garbage out. Not to mention copyright violations. So the top copyright official in the United States works where? Library of Congress. Does anybody remember that the head librarian of Library of Congress just got fired within a couple of days of when the top librarian who was writing a report on copyright violations and AI system owners and put out that report? That's a thing that happened in the last 4 months. Yeah, so they are just sucking up anything they can get a hold of. There are, last I checked, it was a couple months ago, there were something like 17 lawsuits going on where writers, comedians, actors were suing AI system companies because they're taking all of their data. And they don't want to have to answer for it.
Doesn't the New York Times get to be
Yeah.
sued against, is it Meta, I think?
Is it Meta? I thought it was OpenAI.
Yeah, maybe it's.
I don't know. OpenAI is ChatGPT. Meta is Facebook. Do you guys know the one for Twitter, for Elon Musk? Grok, right. So garbage in, garbage out. But there's a thing that they're seeing happening called data poisoning. And that's where people are actually seeding the internet with articles stating incorrect information, lies, on purpose to corrupt the training data that the AI system is using to give you an answer. I heard of an example of this with, it's actually a Russian disinformation campaign. They're seeding the internet with articles that they know are going to get sucked into something like OpenAI, and then questions are going to be answered based on this, but they're not true. So even good algorithms can draw the wrong connections. So there's something that happens in AI called a hallucination. The AI system can hallucinate connections where they don't exist. So there was a lawyer, and this has happened twice in the last 5 years, who used AI to write a legal brief and submitted it in court, and it turned out this person told the system, write me a legal brief on this case with this position with supporting case law. And the AI system fabricated court cases as proof, like as backup, because it didn't say, go find me the sources and then write. It really depends on how you write your prompt. Another thing that happened was there was a doctor who was trying it out. They prompted the system to give them the names of 10 medications that could be used for kidney failure. It made up names of medications.
I think something just happened like that too with in Congress, wasn't it with Kennedy?
Yeah,
Like they called them out, there was sources cited that
yeah,
weren't
Yeah.
real, and it was all, I think it was about vaccines or something, I don't recall, but I know that there was a big Congress, I saw
Yeah.
some videos.
yeah. I saw a couple of articles. Yeah, a lot of they were hallucinated citations, or they were real people cited in studies that they hadn't done, or the studies had been done by those people, but the conclusions that they drew were incorrect, were not from that. So there's also been some speculation about all of the trade negotiations happening, like that formula that they used back in April when they decided that the island of penguins gets a 50% tariff. And the way that they figured out, like no economist could figure out how they came up with that number. And someone kind of gave a prompt to ChatGPT, and that's essentially what it's spit out. It's not cool. And then models and agents, what we talked about before, the thing that tells the computer how to answer your question, those can be manipulated in order to get the desired result. So we saw this with Grok. Does anybody remember reading about how Grok for a while, no matter what you asked it, was telling you about the white genocide in South Africa? That's because somebody messed with the model, the agent, like the way that it answers your question. It told the system, whenever anybody asks a question, no matter what it is, give them the answer, but be sure to include some information about the white genocide in South Africa. Yeah, he just did it again. Yeah. And it's something I've heard called like it's like they write it into the code in how to answer the question so that you can't, it's actually in the part of the search bar. It ends up like adding something to it. And there was an interesting thing that happened where there was a guy on Blue Sky who posted a screenshot. There was a computer scientist who basically retrained an AI model by explaining to it that it was like missing information or something that it was using was outdated, and just through like having this interaction, he rewrote the code that the agent was using. And kind of feels like you shouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
Well, I mean, a lot of it's open source, so people can go in and make changes,
Right.
but
But that's part of, to me, that's part of the problem, is because as I explained, you've got the training data, that can be manipulated. You've got the algorithms, those can be manipulated. You've got the models and the agents, those can be, like, independent of one another. Each one of those things can be tweaked in order to change the kind of result you get or give you what someone wants you to have. That's what's scary about it to me. So another thing to consider when thinking about how to find good information is, what are the stakes? Now, as a librarian, I'd love to tell you, only ever go to scholarly, highbrow academic articles and only ever read 300 plus page books. But that's not the world we live in, right? So the importance of the question really matters. And not every question that we have that we turn to the internet for is actually very important. Some of them are. So we talked about this earlier. The question, what are the risk probabilities of a surgical procedure my doctor is recommending? Should you pop that into ChatGPT? Probably not. No. But then what about, is the actor from my favorite TV show married? All right. So if you get the wrong information on that, I guess you cancel the wedding invites, or I don't know. But it doesn't really matter, right? Where's the nearest dry cleaner? You know, I'd like to know where it is, but it's not super duper important. Like nothing, nothing lives or dies based on that answer. What is the current U.S. national debt? That's something that people like to mess with the numbers on to give you, like to get you to think a certain thing about a certain thing. So where should you go to find information? And then what does habeas corpus mean? Like, it's important to actually truly understand what those words mean. Now, the thing is, there are sources for all of these things, and they're not all Google. So a medical question, look for a medical journal. We talked about this a little bit earlier. If you want to know, like, what are the current standards of care in a surgery or diagnosing an illness or treating that illness, you need to go to the medical journals. The national debt, treasury.gov tracks it. There's a national debt tracker. Have you guys ever seen that crazy, it looks like a casino slot machine? They're getting the data from treasury.gov, so you can just skip that mess and just go to treasury.gov. And they've got a way of presenting the data, so you can look at today, you can look at the last 7 days or the last 6 months or whatever. If you want to know something about the government, go to the government website that's responsible for putting that information up. If you want to know if the actor from your favorite TV show is married, go to IMDb. And then local services, when you go into your search engine, you should type in something like dry cleaner near me. Does anybody get that option when you type something into Google? It offers you the near me. If it doesn't, you can just add that. So do you guys kind of see what I'm saying? Not all information is equal. The importance of all questions is not equal. And a lot of times there are different places to go for different kinds of questions. And that kind of increases your chances of knowing that your information is reliable. All right, so now how do you write your question? How do you develop your question to find the answer that you want? So identify the key words or phrases and then try out variations. And this is something we teach students, especially in using like searching a library catalog. Figure out which words in that are really important. and then maybe try synonyms for that word until you get to the information that you want. So we're going to go through an example that I created for your entertainment. So what was the movie about the two men who were on trial for murder? Well, that may not be specific enough. What was the movie about two young men who were mistakenly accused of murder while visiting the South? It's closer. Set the timer for this too long. What was the 90s movie where the two Utes were charged with murder while traveling through a rural area? I felt very clever writing this. I just want you all to know. But it matters. The way that you phrase the question, switching out some of the words because you're not quite getting what you were looking for, it's a search strategy that we teach students. And then for search engines. So some of you already, well, Janet and John probably already know this. I have to look this kind of stuff up because I'm not a computer person. So how do search engines actually work, right? So someone creates a website and then with a web address, and then search engines scan the net for new web pages. And then when they find a new web page, they try to collect some information about it. Where is it? Who wrote it? What's it about? What are some of the search terms someone might use to find this? And then they create, and that goes into their index with those search terms. And so when you type in cats are mean, it's going to find all the articles about how cats are mean. But there's a couple of issues though. So Google is the biggest one. We all know Google. We all probably mostly use Google. And it does have the largest number of indexed pages on the internet, by far. Here's the thing though, they're collecting your data. They know everything about you. They know what you're searching for. They know what your health problems are. They know what your money problems are. And they are keeping all of that and they are selling it. So just know that.
And you can pay to be higher on the results.
This is part of the optimization. So they have this thing where they rank results based on their optimization that they don't like to talk about how they come to those conclusions, but it's sort of an open secret that if you're willing to pay them, they are willing to put your business, your company, your article, your whatever higher up on the list. When someone types in why are cats mean, I can pay them to put my article up there so that the advertisers who support my content can give me more money because I got more clicks. So just be aware of that. So sometimes you have to look for a while to find the thing that you want. DuckDuckGo, has anybody ever heard of DuckDuckGo? That's a pretty good one. It does take a little longer because, as I said, it doesn't have the same number, just volume of indexed pages, but it's still good. Research databases. Do you guys know where to find research databases? Burchard Public Library. If you've got a library card, you can log on to the Burchard Library page and you can get access to PubMed to find out about the surgical procedure you're looking for. And if you're having a hard time, come into the library and one of the librarians will be happy to sit down with you and help you navigate, because those research databases are a little bit harder to get through than just typing it into Google. If you have a hard time with that, you can go to Google Scholar. Google Scholar is still pretty good, and that keeps it within academic sources. And then the library catalog. There's a publishing process, and there is literally not one downside to having a question in mind, and as part of your research, going to the public library and checking out a book on that subject.
One thing back on the Google, if you get a set of results, they will tell you if it's a paid result. And I literally never.
I skip that one. I always kind of figure it's not.
Yeah, maybe it's a good source, but
Yeah.
it might not be.
Yeah.
Because they pay you.
Right. Especially for products.
Yeah.
I click on just to make the advertiser pay.
One of the other things is lately they've changed things a little bit. So now when you type something in, it used to be you had to look for like, I want to know something about Tom Green and you had to say on Facebook in order for it to pull that. Now as part of the search results that it gives you, it's also giving mentions on Reddit, on Facebook, on TikTok, on wherever. So just understand that's now pretty high up on the results. Which I find annoying, but okay. And you can go into refining your results. So you can use Google Scholar, but up here you can go to advanced search, and that's always available on Google. And so you can add some limitations. What kind of content do you want? You can eliminate the social media stuff that way. Now I'll say this isn't a great system, and it actually eliminates a lot of what you might be looking for, but it is available as, like, if you have a very specific idea about what it is you're looking for and you don't want to look through pages and pages and pages, this can shorten that time a little bit, but understand that every time you limit it, you might be blocking out the thing that you're trying to find. If you misremember the name or, you know. And honestly, the language that you can use in the search bar has really evolved in the last few years. So you can type in how, what, where. It used to be you just put in a couple of words because that's really all it could take, and it would just go find you everything with those words. But now you can add things like Wall Street Journal article, fact check. If that's what you want, you can have it just go find fact checking of that article. If you want to know this paper that was cited in this news article by this reporter, I want to know if this is right. Go to that, grab the citation, and plug it into Google somewhere else, and just have it search for all mentions of that article. And then you can type in something like criticism of, and it'll give you people who have, you know, maybe there are some scientists who think it's this thing, and there are other scientists who've also studied for a long time, but they think it's something else. And for some of those high stakes questions we talked about, that's probably a good habit to get into. Anybody have any questions?
You can also use like arithmetic symbols.
I hate those. I know, the Boolean, yeah,
Or expert.
right. Which I've done, I just never got super proficient with it, and I like that now it can just hear, you know, it can read and, or, except for, you know, stuff like that. Okay, so now we're getting to the tricks. Are you guys ready? So here's a nifty mnemonic device for assessing internet sources. This is my own. I came up with this one. And it's radar. Relevance. Does this information apply directly to my question? So if you ask it, why are cats mean, and it gives you an article about dogs, that is not relevant. Authority. Does the creator or author have any relevant expertise in the topic they are writing about? If you ask about why cats are mean, and it gives you psychics and not veterinarians, keep looking. The date. How recent is this information? This comes up a lot as an academic librarian. People will just find stuff. Here's an article that says what I want to say in my paper, but it's more than 10 years old, and things may have changed since then. So you really need to use some of those advanced search parameters to limit the time period if it's something like that. And if you're looking for why were cats mean in prehistoric times, I don't know what to tell you. Accuracy. Are there citations for the facts given? Does this person who's presenting you with an essay or an article in the news or something, are they saying something factual that they're not offering you any citation for? That's usually a tip-off that they may be pulling it out of their rear. And understanding which sources have an actual publishing process that they are put through and which ones don't. And do you guys remember what those are? So scholarly, most of it has a publishing process. Popular, a lot of it has a publishing process, and a lot of times it has citations, but there are other times when it doesn't have. So you need to find out, is there a publisher who had an editor go through this and fact check it? Reason for writing. Is the information meant to persuade or inform you? Has anybody read a headline, maybe in the last 24 hours, that just made their blood boil? Nobody? Man, you guys are tired tonight.
Well, like every headline.
Right, right.
I was just trying to narrow it down.
Yeah.
But does anybody, when it's called a heuristic device. It's meant to get your emotions up. Those headlines are written in a way that's meant to make you upset. And whenever you really, like something just really triggers you, know that they're doing that on purpose, and there may not be an honest reason for it. They may have a nefarious purpose in getting you that upset, right? So
Well, they want you to click. They get paid for clicks.
they want you to click. But look at the difference between the headlines from the New York Post and the New York Times. Right? So this is just for internet sources. Now we're going to talk about information, regardless of where you get it from. This is something they're teaching kids in school, and I'm really, really glad. And this is the smell test. You learn something, not sure if it's right, give it the smell test. And it's along the same lines. So who's the source? Who's providing you with this information? Is this a historian telling you about how World War II went down, or is this just some guy who read a couple of papers about it and he's got some opinions, right? The motivation. Is this information getting to you through ideology or because they want you to be informed? So think about what the author or creator's motivation is. Evidence. Is this an opinion or are there facts cited, or is it both? You should always ask, how do you know that? You should always be wanting, if someone says something, you should always want to know how they know that, and never be afraid to ask someone where they got their information from. Logic. Does this make sense? If someone says, I've got a lakefront property in Utah, maybe. Lakefront property in Arizona, probably not, right? New Mexico. So if it doesn't make sense, it's probably not true. Or if it like makes you feel too good, that's also a tip off. And then left out. What was left out of the information? So I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but I worked in the intelligence community for a long time. So when they talk about the director of NSA or the director of national intelligence, I have a better idea than a lot of people of the stuff that they're leaving out, like what's like standard operating procedure and what's not. There's a lot of topics though that I don't have that kind of insight into. So I have to try to be careful not to just take something at face value. But you should always be thinking about, what have they left out? What information did they not put in this article because they want to make me think this one thing and not have any doubts about it? So always keep that in mind. And here are our takeaways. Outright lies are pretty easy to spot. Like if someone just says, the sun's not going to come up tomorrow, you know that that's not true. Like that's an obvious lie. It's the misleading stuff. It's the, if I tell you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how many women total in this room? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I tell you 5 out of 7 women in the United States has short hair, because 5 out of 7 women in this room has short hair, right? You may not think about it. You didn't stop and go, well, how did she get that number? Where did that come from? People just say it in a very authoritative tone, and we just sort of keep going, right? But we have to stop doing that. We have to stop doing that. So you need to find out where the information came from and know that people lie with numbers all the time. A strong initial reaction to something means you need to give it more scrutiny. If you read a headline and you're like, yes, stop for a second. If you read a headline and you want to have someone stuff you into a cannon and shoot you into the sun, also stop for a second and just, it might be on purpose to get you upset, to get you to click so that they can make money. Another thing is, the most efficient way to avoid being led astray when you're looking for the answer to a question is to start your journey in the appropriate place. So that is a time saver. Take a little time to understand what's IMDb, what kind of information they have, how is it different than PubMed? How is, Merriam-Webster legal dictionary different than regular Merriam? So know where to start looking to begin with. And you can even Google that. You can type in, hey Google, where's the best place to find definitions for legal terms? And they'll give you some options. Where's the best place to find information, current information about cardiac procedures? It may tell you. It just depends on how you ask the question. Another thing, there's a difference between the reliability of information from someone's personal opinion and that from real expertise. Right? So I went to the Corn Palace and I thought it was great. That doesn't mean every single person who's ever been there thinks that it's great, though I'm pretty sure every person who's been there thinks that it's great. If they don't, they're weird. But just understand, personal experience and being an eyewitness to something is very valuable. And it does make us think, oh, this person's probably telling the truth. But understand that because that person saw something happen from where they were standing doesn't mean that someone who was in a different spot didn't see something different. So just be aware of that. And also, there really aren't any shortcuts. Being well-informed takes time. But our democracy is on the line. we have to understand what's happening. We have to know what bills are going on. We have to know if the problems they're telling us they're solving are real problems. We have to know if the solution that they're proposing would actually do anything to address those problems. And the only way to do that is by being well informed. So I hope that all of these tips and strategies really help you guys, or maybe just help you think about it in a different way. Does anybody have any questions? I feel like John has a question.
So when, back to the AI models, is that all from written material? I mean, obviously there's images and all of that, but like for example, podcasts. I mean, think how many people get their information from listening, you know, whether
To
it's
Joe Rogan talk for 3
yeah,
hours,
for
and
reading
and
an
no one's
audio.
really citing him, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
right.
YouTube. I think a podcast is being like YouTube.
Yeah, right.
So I just have to have a level of, I need to know who this person is and what their expertise or education or whatever it is that made me want to listen to them talk about something. And if it's just, like there's those two ladies from Oklahoma that I've had at podcast. They've got a couple of things that, like, one of them is a lawyer. She does understand legal stuff, and that's great. I don't listen to them to make all my voting decisions. I just kind of enjoy the catharsis of other middle-aged white women being angry with me. And I think there's value in that. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you can't make decisions based on it. So I guess, maybe one of the only takeaways is like, think for a minute about how important the question is. What are the consequences of getting it wrong? Some things the consequences are very severe, others not so much. A recipe to make apple pie, maybe a sucky apple pie is not the thing that you want to happen, but nobody's going to die unless it's salmonella, because nobody works at the FDA anymore. You guys have any questions? So I've got these. We're going to put this PowerPoint in the Google Drive for this group for Northwest Ohio Good Trouble. So all of these links will be in there. Here are some of the links that I used to put this together, but here are also some resources for you guys if you want to fact check things. So that images.google.com will reverse search images. So if someone, like, that's how, have you ever seen the stories where someone goes, that's not a picture of a protest happening in LA, that's actually from Romania from 5 years ago. That's how they figure that out, is by using these image reverse search. Snopes.com is good. Sometimes they're a little too neutral for my taste, but they're not lying to you. Another one is newslit.org. It's a news literacy information site. It's a bunch of teachers and journalists who got together, and there's a lot of really, really good information. There's some PDFs in there that explain things to you. I've downloaded some infographics from there that we printed out and put up in the library. Talks about bias in the media. They talk about, the good and bad points of AI and using AI in your schoolwork. So I think there's some really good stuff on there. There's the American Library Association initiatives, information literacy super searchers. There's a couple of PDF handouts that you can read that talk about how to construct your search, what search engines to use, some stuff like that if you want something you can print out and keep at home. And I just want to tell you something that may surprise you. Hopefully you'll agree with me. We love Wikipedia. Somebody's checking it. It's actually very good. You can't use it you can't cite it in a paper, but you can go to the citations for the things that Wikipedia is telling you. And if you're starting from the very beginning, from scratch on a topic that you don't know anything about, Wikipedia is a great place to go. It's moderated. There's people checking. The only people who can add or take information out of stuff on Wikipedia have to be, like, they really get looked at. You can't just go sign up to start adding stuff to people's Wikipedia pages. Like, they have a vetting process. So I'm not saying it's 100% right 100% of the time. It's very, very high accuracy rate, especially for, just starting out. The phantom medical procedure I keep referencing. If you don't know anything about what that procedure is, why is it usually done, starting on Wikipedia is probably a good place to go. And then you go down to the bottom where they've got the links to everything that they referenced in that entry. And also who made the changes. So, I mean, when people are engaging in chicanery, gets picked up on pretty quickly.
people feel real ownership for particular
Oh,
pages,
yes, yeah.
and
They watch them
the
very
whole-
carefully. Yeah, mistakes are taken down very quickly. Does anybody have any questions?
It feels like we're kind of moving into a new age of information. I mean, we are.
We are. We are. We absolutely
And,
are.
and it's like,
It's going to be harder than ever to tell what's real and what's not.
yeah, who's watching?
Yeah.
And who's guarding the hens? I mean, it really is kind of.
We are.
You have to guard your own hens, is basically how this works out, which is why this information, which I hope you share with anybody who you think struggles with this, or give them my name or whatever, we need to get as many people on the same page as far as, like, a lot of people understand now. Not everything on the internet's true. Somehow a lot of people still believe everything they read on the internet, right?
And they post it.
And they post it, and they don't have good tools. And, social media can be great. We use it in the advocacy and activism space to get the word out on things, which is great. But don't post articles if you didn't read them. Just don't, because it may say something different. Yes?
Okay, so my question is, I wanted to check something out. Like, hey, I've heard of Snopes, and I go look, and I still can't figure out if what I saw, because maybe I don't know how to utilize the site, or I don't know how to put in a question, but I read something, I go to Snopes, and then I try to,
Mm-hmm.
and and it was more complicated than, getting upset before.
So what I would do is the thing that you saw, I would phrase that as succinctly as you can, and put it in the search bar, and then add fact check at the end of it. Or you can ask questions like, is this true? In quotes, whatever, and then, is this true? Has anyone said that this is not real? You can look for commentary like that specifically.
So, do they have a select number of things they publish?
I don't think it's a select number, but I think they kind of watch, like, that may have, whatever it is that you were searching for may have caught your eye, but if it didn't catch enough people's eye that it came up as trending in some way, then maybe they didn't do an article about
Or
it.
if they can't find enough information on it to prove or disprove it, sometimes they'll put a stub in there that says that, but usually
Yeah.
they wait
Until
more
there's really like
information.
some momentum and people are really trying to find out. And I search around things. Sometimes if I can't find what I want, if what I'm searching for is more to remind myself of something I saw, I end up using alternate vocabulary, kind of looking around it, trying to make it like vague, but not so vague that I have 87 pages of results to go through. So it can be tricky, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. I know. And that's where, as I said, it just takes time and practice.
And if there's something you want to know more about, but there isn't a lot available right now, you can make a Google, you can have it tell you can have it send you.
A Google alert.
A Google alert.
Yeah, like I did with book bans. I wanted to
Yeah.
follow, what's the trend with book bans. So I put in a Google alert, and every day at about 4:30, I get an email in my Gmail inbox that tells me, like, what are the news stories today that mentioned book bans.
Don't put
No. You will run out of memory quickly.
very quickly.
Yeah.
So is there one that you think is one of the simplest? And again, for the purpose of checking accuracy from something that comes across, over the internet.
Like a news alert. Like checking the accuracy of a news alert, a headline
Yeah,
that came up, something
headline
like
or,
that. I mean, it's not that there's one. I use Google as well. And if I see a headline that says, local man delivers baby, I'll, okay, where's the local? And then I'll look up and try to find out. And then, then it ends up being something like his wife went into labor in the car and he caught the baby, and they're calling that delivering the baby. That probably didn't help, I'm sorry.
Are you more like trying to figure out, like, how do I trust this source, or how do I prove this right?
No, I'm looking at ignorance, naivete, especially because I get real uptight with the fact of how much I don't know.
Mhm.
How to, be using, these. So it's like, which is a simple one, and if are there any clues to, it's like what you're saying, you're listening a lot, it's like, okay, they're high accuracy. I had, the one time ever I forwarded a news story, someone came back and said, check it on Snopes, that's incorrect. Blah, blah,
Okay.
blah. I'm like, oh man, I've sent it out there. And so since
Everyone's
then,
done that at
I've been
least
really
once.
scared.
Everyone. Yeah.
Right. Well, I did it once, and and someone told me, they fact checked it on Snopes, and because I just, forwarded something from someone I trusted, and
Yeah.
they were inaccurate, so that made me inaccurate, and then you lose trust, because if you
Well,
see someone.
right.
What I'm saying is, so I really am hesitant, and that's why I want to know which one is simple, who,
There isn't a one size fits all. Unfortunately, there's not a
Is there one
single
that fits me?
multi-tool. I mean, I would say using Google, but telling it what it is you want to know about that thing. Do you want it fact checked? Do you want criticism of it? Do you want to, if you see an article by
Well, it's primarily for fact check.
say like what's his name? I don't know, just some random journalist, and you want to know, should I trust this or not? You can Google the journalist's name and read about them. Where did they go to school? Have they gotten in trouble before? Look up, like, what's the track record of, ex-journalist?
Well, Wikipedia will tell you.
Wikipedia will tell you if they've had controversies. And that'll come up in the search results if you type in Josh Ducey, journalistic history, or, whatever journalist career history, or look up, how many times has the Wall Street Journal been sued for, reporting incorrect information. Like just think about the questions that you should ask to see if this is true, using that framework of would it hold up in a court of law,
Yeah.
right?
I just said there's not one easy way. Like you kind of have to take whatever this article is, search like those words, and then see what other results you get, and then you just have to look and see what did this article say,
Right.
what did this say, who is this, where is this from? Just trying to think of an example.
Yeah.
Multiple sources, is
And
what
it,
you're
like
saying.
she said, there's no shortcuts. Like I mean, because I'm just like
There is
wait a
there is a
second.
little bit, because if you're a pretty hardcore news consumer, i.e. junkie, you start to know who your people are that you can rely on. You start to you've been listening to these people, these are your trusted sources, and on occasion they may be wrong. They may jump the gun. They may draw a conclusion for something that was a bit premature. I've shared things that it turned out were not true. We all just need to understand that in a world that is, the amount of information that we are floating in these days, they've done studies on it, it is bonkers. If you feel confused, that's why, because it's a completely different world that we're living in now. And we all just have to do the best that we can, but understand there's a huge difference between you saw something from a source that you thought you could count on, and the way that you keep your credibility is you turn around and go, oh, hey, I'm sorry, guys, I shared this. It turns out this isn't true, so I just wanted you to know that in case you shared it too. You own it, you try to do a little bit better next time. That's, social media stuff.
It's the correction.
It's the correction, and we're not the New York Times, so if someone's following you on Facebook, they're gonna see the update as well, because and everybody's done it. There's just too much going on to not have it happen. It's how you handle it. Anything else? Just please don't use ChatGPT as Google. Just do me that favor. And understand that ChatGPT may be free because you're paying with your data. If you're not given a service, your card, you're paying with your personal data. Everything that you put into it, it's ingesting into its training data.
So if we do a Google query nowadays, first thing you give is
I know.
an AI response.
But they've gotten better in the last few months because now there are citations. There actually are little like links, and you can click on the little paperclip, and it'll take you to the article where it got that information. So I wouldn't call it scholarly, but there are citations.
You can take that out, like when you type your search, if you put the minus AI after it.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that.
I mean, it's an extra step, but you can either ignore it or like
Well,
take that
yeah.
out.
The reason it's important, like if it's something simple that you really don't need AI for, an AI response could use up to 10 times the amount of energy.
Yeah, apparently
Even if it gives you exactly the same information.
apparently telling it thank you makes it say you're welcome, because that's how it's programmed, and that eats up an insane amount of energy.
I'll get a response from AI and read through it, and then you page down and start going to some of the sources. It's almost verbatim.
Yeah.
What's exactly what the AI did.
Yeah, that's why they're getting sued. That's why they're getting sued. Yeah. Look, it's a tool, and I'm not trying to be, I don't know, difficult about it, because I know a lot of people like it, but I work with a couple of people who use AI for everything, and you can tell. You read the emails and you can tell that Copilot wrote this. They don't care about what I'm saying to them. They don't want to actually engage on this work issue that we're having. It feels very dismissive, and I don't love it. I used AI to write an archive management policy, which saved me a little bit of time. But I, researched it for 2 hours so that when it gave me the policy framework, I knew what I needed and didn't need, and then I could fill the rest of it out. So it saved me a few hours of writing, but I couldn't just have it do it for me and then turn it in. And that's what a lot of people are doing. And our kids are watching us. If you're basically cheating, writing a whole policy for your work, or at some point it's going to make a mistake and you're going to get fired. Especially some of these data analysts, or these financial bros that work in market projections and stuff. A lot of them are using AI. There was a company that fired all of its analysts and used AI, and then had to hire all of the analysts back, because it turns out AI is actually not that good at prediction. Yes. Right, because it's not a person. It's not a person's brain. And the only people who are telling you that AI is super, super smart are people who sell AI. It's marketing materials. They make a lot of mistakes. They're not perfect. They spent more money on the natural language processing than they have on the algorithms that make the connections. So it sounds smart, but that's not the same as being smart. Yes.
Don't you find that when you read something and then you meet the person, you read the author, and you go,
Yes.
you didn't do this.
Yes. 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 And I'm a resource for all of you. If you have questions, if you're having a hard time finding something, you can reach out. And I've got some Life Scholars people in here, right? We got a new perk for you. You now get a Terra library card.
Really?
Really.
Thank you. Who came up with that? Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. So I'm in there. So if you have a question, you want to come look at the AI supported research tool, I can show it to you. We've got some new books. They're really great. I picked them all out myself. Come help me boost my circulation numbers so I keep getting money for books, because we don't have new ones. Yes.
When you say Life Scholars person, you mean people that present, like Janet?
No, I mean people who attend.
Oh,
Attendees.
oh,
Students.
Yeah. Registrants, whatever you.
registrants.
That's all, you guys. You can come get a library card with me.
That's marvelous.
You're more likely to read actual paper books than some of the 19-year-olds. I just want them to be used. Anything else? But also I can help you. I keep telling my mom's 82, and she'll have a hard time, like, oh, I need to scan my passport to apply for this UK visa. And I'm like, go to the library. They will help you. I'm the library here. I can help you. Bring your stuff in. You don't know how to scan something. You can't find the answer to a question. You want to look at a research. It's like there's something in the DNA. Someone asks me a question, even if I don't care about it and I kind of don't want to help, I'm compelled to drop everything and spend hours trying to find an answer to this question. And we're all like that. It's kind of annoying. You guys good? We have some prizes. Prizes.
What do you think?
Lottery or island.
Anybody?
No one else won those boxes. There you go.
I'll do the rainbow. I also have two enamel pins that say Fight Evil, Read Books. We have another one